I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo del Real, here with my partner, co-host, colleague, Mr. Nick Hodge, who of course is also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 298th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk markets. We're going to talk opportunities during tax law selling season. We're going to talk the Trumpster and President Elon. A lot to get to, as always. First and foremost, Mr. Hodge, before we wish everyone the best of holidays and Christmases and New Year's, how are you and the family doing today, sir?
We're all doing well, Gerardo, though not as dapperly dressed as you are. That's a pretty sweet jacket and hat you got there.
I appreciate it.
Is Santa Claus bringing rallies or tax loss gifts or what?
You know, we do it for the ho-ho-hos, Nick. That's all anyone wants a guy to do. We got to keep it festive. We got to keep it jolly. And no, look, I'm real thankful for the Christmas season, the holiday season, whatever you celebrate, make it count. If you happen to have, if you're lucky enough to be around loved ones and they're healthy and they're safe, man, enjoy the heck out of that, right? I've shared on this podcast before, so I'll share again. But, a couple of years ago, right around this time, I was working on getting my mom freed after she was kidnapped by a fucking cartel in Mexico. And, that took 3 days and was probably some of the most stressful time of my life. And it came on the heels of my mother-in-law passing in April, who I was close with, and then my dad passing that July. So I couldn't be more thankful is what I'm trying to express here for what so far has been a phenomenal holiday Christmas season. The wife gets prettier by the day. The kids are healthy. I'll have them all home here as of tonight. And I know you have family in town too. So no, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for everything this year.
Yes, sir. Those are the things that matter. We'll talk about some things that don't matter as much here in a second. But yeah, happy wife, happy life, healthy family for sure. And I'll get to see my parents. I haven't been with them in our house for Christmas since we moved. It'll be the first time. So that's been 7 years. So definitely looking forward to that. But as we've been saying, still 2 weeks of the year left, Gerardo. Tax law season in the teeth of it. And as you know, Fed meeting week. So we're not done yet, though, even though we got our party hats on.
No. We work hard, play hard, and do it all at the same time sometimes, right? And so absolutely, there's a lot of year left, despite a lot of people checking out. I'm still looking here, and I'm kind of upset. Although I'm going to celebrate, Christmas and New Year's with the family. I hate when the markets close because I wish I could sneak away and trade. Because anytime you have low volume during tax law selling season, you get some pretty compelling opportunities out there. And look, we'll get to some of those opportunities a bit later on. There's been a lot of news this past week, transformational news in the lithium space. Jerome spoke. We're going to talk about Jerome, the effect on the commodity space, the reaction, how sustainable we think that is. A lot to get to. I joked on Twitter or X with you. You after Jerome spoke and the market tanked 1,100 points and gold, flew below 2,600 and silver broke that $30 level and the dollar index now at 108.3, with the Canadian loonie just absolutely taking a clobbering, right? And so I joked afterwards when you said, is this the Santa Claus rally that everybody was expecting? And I said, no, this is how rich people throw tantrums, right? And of course, the tantrum comes on the heels of Jerome Powell. Not saying he wasn't cutting rates. He actually cut rates again. Not saying they were going to stop doing it. Saying they might slow down the velocity of the rate cuts. And if that's enough for a market to tank 1,100 points, and commodities across the board to get hit that hard and the dollar to fly above the 108 level, how fragile is our economy? If that alone was enough to do all that in one day. And then we'll talk about, the rebound today, the slight rebound today. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you think the economy and the market is in relation to policy, because those are two very different things. It's like gold and gold stocks. Two very similar things, right? Gold could go up, gold stocks could go down. Same with the economy, same with the stock market. Where are we at in this cycle?
I was going to say, first of all, fuck Jerome, but that guy
fuck
sucks,
Jerome,
man.
I'm with you. He does.
I mean, he stood up there. We got what's a hawkish cut, Gerardo? Like, how do you hawkishly cut? It's like, you're being sober drunk, or you're being, it's like, don't make any sense. If you're cutting rates, it's dovish. Cutting rates is not hawkish. Let's start there, right? So all these hawkish headlines are ridiculous. And then for him to stand up there and say that, they've got their eye now firmly back on inflation. It's like, well, where was your eye for the last 3 years, you fuckwad? Like, we went to 9% inflation and you told us it was transitory, and then you didn't cut rates until September. And then, oh, guess what? Inflation went back up. It's now back at 3%. I was telling you in September and October, it wasn't a fucking bird flu. Sorry, I'm cussing a lot this week. Egg prices were going up because of inflation, and now you've got cocoa at all-time highs and other things like that. So, this guy's been wrong. The Federal Reserve's been wrong for years. The economy is fragile, and it's I don't want to say propped up, but it's been buoyed by the government. And that's what I was writing about in Foundational Profits this month, right? Is like, I want to eliminate government waste as much as the next guy, but it's one of those careful what you wish for scenarios, right? Because 20% of the jobs in recent months have been government jobs, right? And so if you start firing those folks or laying them off, what's going to happen to the employment number? And then what's that going to beget in the economy? Same thing with the GDP, right? If you start shaving off government expenditures, right? What happens to those government contractors, et cetera? And then in turn, what happens to the GDP numbers? So, the government's been driving what I would say is too much of the economy. So that's one thing. And the other thing that's sort of fragile, I'll use the word fragile. How fragile is the economy? I mean, I'm not sure how fragile the economy is. It looks like we're going to get 3% growth. What is fragile is sort of the relationship that the entire economy has with debt and the sustainability of it, right? So, the reason he cut rates, right, and he doesn't give a fuck about inflation, as I just said, is because he needs the interest rate to be down to service the debt, right? I mean, let's be clear on what their goal is. They don't care about you or the inflation. They're now looking at $1.1 trillion in monthly expenditures on the debt and saying, oh, wait a minute, like we can't let this get out of control. And then, this is what sort of the Lynn Aldens and the Danielle DiMartino Boost of the world have been talking about, Jim Grants, et cetera. You're getting towards a game where that debt becomes unsustainable. And then, you have on a red hat. I won't put on my tinfoil hat because I've learned better over the years, right? That they can keep this game going for longer than anyone anticipates, right?
No doubt.
Especially because of the nuclear powered aircraft carriers and the dollar going up. You mentioned the $108. So look, even if we've got this record debt and it's unsustainable and it's $1 trillion to service it. It's like, look, the rest of the world is still denominating their debt in the dollar, and the dollar is getting stronger, at least when weighed against a basket of currencies, i.e. the DXY at 108. So
108.
All that said, it's quite confounding is what I've learned, is what I'm seeing out there in the market, because, you look at what the Fed governors were saying, and you've got, one or two who see, 2 rates next year, and you've got a couple who see 3 rates, and you've got a couple who see no rate cuts or hikes next year. It's like nobody knows what the fuck is going on, right? And so I continue to say that, we really just got to wait, right? We got to wait until this guy gets in office, and we got to see which Trump we get. That's what I was, again, writing in Foundational Profits.
Or which Musk we get.
That's right. That's what I was saying in the call-in, right? Are we going to get the Trump that is, enabling Elon Musk and DOGE and Vivek Ramaswamy and wants to cut rates? Or are we going to get the Trump that, wants his name on the checks that he sends out to the entire populace, right? And that presided over an expansion of the money supply and an expansion of the debt in his first term. So, they're talking a good game, and we'll see what they say. But that was a long answer to your question.
No, it was a long question. And look, let me add some points to that. I absolutely love Elon getting in there and look, whether you want the government to shut down or not. And again, I told y'all when Trump was elected and the influence Musk was going to have, that this was a very consequential election because he doesn't play by the rules. It's a part of the appeal to a lot of America. They know that the rules have traditionally been to systemically oppress the lower and middle income classes, regardless of skin color or background or ethnicity. Yes, immigrants and minorities get it worse, but don't get it messed up. The poor whites in the mountains that were bootlegging alcohol in the 20s and 30s had it pretty damn bad too during the Depression, right? And so when I see Elon being able to effectively shut down a spending bill with some tweets on his platform that he overpaid for, I can't overstate enough how nervous the normal traditional platforms that have played puppet master with the politicians, how nervous they must be right now. And you can see it, right? You can see the mainstream media that, like Elon says, isn't the real media anymore, how nervous they are that their corporate lobbyists aren't getting the spending and the pork that they're typically used to getting. I absolutely love Elon going in and saying, President Trump, can I get him? And Trump going, yeah, you're a genius. Go ahead and get him. And within a day, he flipped like 5 or 6 different senators to voting no. And effectively, we might have a government shutdown this weekend, and with all the repercussions, be absolutely clear. There is so much stuff in that 1,100-page bill that most people have never read it, and that includes the politicians. Nancy Pelosi broke her hip. Nancy Pelosi broke her hip at 84 years old. I wish her the best. Still in office, and not only still in office,
still
blocking AOC from becoming, the next generation of, however you feel about AOC, blocking the next generation of Democrats, to kind of step up and see what they can deliver for the American people, right? And we've seen it on the other side as well, except that the Trumpster won, and now they got to kiss the ring, and now they got to kiss multiple rings with Musk. So I say all that to say, if Elon can be this effective, and they're not even in office yet, I'm looking forward to some of the chaos. And I know I'm not going to like all of it. I suspect I'll disagree on some of the immigration policies. We'll see. But be absolutely clear, folks. There's a lot of government waste. It's the reason we are in the mess that we're in. I am really, really excited to see what they're able to chop off. And then the part of me that gets cynical is this. Simultaneously, while I'm excited, I hear Donald Trump advocating for getting rid of the debt ceiling. So he doesn't want a limit on spending. And I suspect he's got pretty smart people telling him, Mr. Trump, the debt is not sustainable. Inflation is going to go back up. We have to keep cutting rates. And the economy is going to overheat again, meaning, again, lower income and middle income people are going to be the hardest hit in this next phase. So both things can't be true, right? The incoming administration can't say that they're all for government efficiency and then at the same time have the president-elect campaigning for the abolition of the debt ceiling. Those two just don't coincide. You can't, spit on me and tell me it's raining.
That's what I'm saying, right? So, we got a guy here who campaigned on draining the swamp the first time, right? And I saw no swamps drained. And so, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. And so I'll just wait and see what they're actually going to do. And, the one thing I picked up on there is you said that Elon overpaid for Twitter. I'm not so sure. Because in the next breath, you got him being able to shut down budget talks with a couple of tweets. So it sounds like he bought himself a hell of a lot of influence.
Yeah, the return on investment has been amazing, but I think if anybody would have had it appraised,
sure,
he probably overpaid by a factor of 2.2 or 2.3, right? And not percent. I'm saying it was probably worth half of what he paid for it. But again, he is. However you feel about Elon, he is absolutely brilliant. Reason those rockets are landing. There's a reason why we're rescuing astronauts. There's a reason why all his PayPal mafia people made the kind of money that they made, along with the group. The rest of the group was brilliant as well, however you feel about them socially or politically. But it's a reason the guy hasn't lost shareholders' money in a very long time. And again, you know what? Richest guy in the world for a reason. Let me go see him cook. It'll be really, 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 for better or for worse, a really good look in the mirror for the country to take a peek and see, okay, this is what happens. And again, I'm all for the chaos. Bring it.
The best disinfectant is sunlight, Gerardo. And, even if they don't get much done, I'd love to see behind the curtain of Congress and the Senate, because there's some shit going on. I mean, obviously there is. I don't have to recap all the conspiracies of the past 10 years that turned out not to be conspiracies on both sides, right? So
sure, on both sides.
But it's definitely fourth-turning stuff. And let me be clear, I wish them the best, right? I thoroughly believe that government spends too much money and there's waste. I just know that people are entrenched, and when their paychecks are dependent on it, they might not vote in your favor, right? And we still do have a representative democracy, right? We don't govern via Twitter. And so, sending a 180-character tweet is one thing, but, getting 535 or however many people are in Congress, to vote for it and get it through is another thing. And just for the sake of saying it, right? We're all talking about the Department of Government Efficiency and DOGE, but it's not a government department, right? We just need to make that distinction. So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It's not blessed by the government. It wasn't created by Congress. It's like me saying I have a Department of Government Non-Efficiency or whatever it is, right? Okay, well, you have that. Cool, bud.
I look, Elon hasn't been elected to anything, as everybody keeps saying, and I keep telling people it doesn't matter. He's got more influence than we do, right? He's got more influence than I think anybody on the planet right now as it relates to the Trumpster, right? One of the first things he did was send Elon to go meet with the Argentine president and then speak with Vladimir Putin. I was like, oh, okay. I get it. You're paying up. You being Mr. Trump, you're paying up. You're making good on that. How long he makes good on that? That's the part that's interesting to me. What the breakup's going to look like? That's the part that's going to be interesting to me, but we'll see.
It seems like he's always willing to talk, and he gets people to the table. You had tariffs on the list, and, this isn't our first go around with tariffs. Again,
No.
we had this whole exercise before. The man's been president before. People come to the table after that, right? He's going to get, what's her name, Claudia from Mexico. She's
Yep.
going to come to the table. We're going to make Canada the 51st state. He's got, Trudeau is literally on the ropes, man. And so, he has his own way of doing things. It's very interesting. Another thing that was very interesting to me in the past week is all these tech companies that are now just pony up money for the inauguration, right? Meta's writing a check. All these folks that are writing a check, whether or not they were for him during the election, right? Now they're just, I won't say kowtowing, but they're definitely matriculating, let's say, into the fold. And that again, it gives me another arrow in my quiver to say, look, man, this guy's not anti-swamp. He's taking money from the usual suspects. So, and they're content to play ball in the usual manner. So we'll see.
And listen, let's be absolutely clear, folks. All those tech companies that were boycotting X, they're all back on the platform with a lot of advertising dollars, right? So let's be absolutely clear. No matter how patriotic you are, how much of a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian you consider yourself, everybody's playing the game. The only part I'm enthusiastic about is the game seems to be getting a little bit more transparent and more people are being called out. And I'm all for that on all sides, right? On all sides. So let's talk about the effect that Jerome had on the commodity space. Gold broke below 2,600. Doing a phenomenal job, by the way, of looking to close above that on a weekly level. And the monthly close is going to be a more important close. So let me start with gold. You are the chartist and technician amongst us, but even I can see that after that, pretty severe drop there, gold wants to come back and breach that $2,600 level and go higher, despite a dollar index, as I mentioned. That's absolutely surging. Now 108.4 as we speak. Thoughts on gold and the levels there?
Gold's fine. The level is 25.30, which it was in the middle of November. It didn't even get down that low on what was a wild day in the markets. I know you want to talk about commodities, but there was a lot of wild price swings once Jerome started his hawkish cut talk. Oh, Jesus. The VIX went up like 75%. It was the second most the VIX had ever gone up in a single day. I'll repeat that because it's worth repeating. It was the second most the volatility index has ever gone up in a single day. It went up 75% from 14 or 15 to 28 or something, I believe it was. And for those of you who aren't market students, what that measures is, yes, volatility in the market, but how it does that is by measuring the amount of puts and calls that people are buying. Puts for protection, being people think that the market's going to go down. And so people immediately started buying puts. To put it in your parlance, the rich people were throwing a fit, right? They were saying, he's taking the punch bowl away. So it was good to see that gold didn't even go down to 25.30, immediately bounced back to 2,600, like you say, as the dollar continues to go up. And that's another thing I was pointing out in the Foundational Profits call-in this week. Is that, a month ago, the correlations were all over the place. I was probably talking about it on this podcast where, 3 months ago, gold was inversely correlated with the dollar, and now it's going up with the dollar, and Bitcoin was doing one thing and the CRB was doing one thing. And on down the line, they were, inverse and positively correlating with the dollar. Now they are all positively correlating with the dollar, right? It's dollar up, oil up, Bitcoin up, gold up, CRB commodity index up. So they're in lockstep now. For however long that lasts, we have to wait and see. Likely through a couple more months of CPI prints, and we'll want to get this Q4 GDP. But what it really is inflation up and growth up, and that makes all things sort of strong, especially here in the United States. So while I answered your first question on how fragile is the economy, and you were keen to denote that the economy is not the market, the market can continue to be awesome here, I think.
I absolutely agree with you. Silver, thoughts there technically. Above 29 again.
Silver got a little bit weaker. So
yeah,
I got to talk about hards versus soft commodities, right? So what we've seen is a reinflation. We saw it come from 2.4, 2.5 to 2.9 per 2.7% in the most recent month. So it's ticking back up. And then we got the egg prices up. I mentioned cocoa. I mentioned coffee. Those are all soft commodities. I think I saw cattle at a record. Cattle also a soft commodity, right? Those things are in the CRB commodity index, which holds a basket of things, but it also holds, harder commodities, things like, nickel and gold, which you were just talking about. So the B commodity index is starting to tick back up. Many soft commodities breaking out or at records, and the hards have been latent. They haven't done that yet, right? So oil, let me start with oil. It did not break down. Like oil's
Nope.
been soft. It's down around $70 WTI, right? But it didn't break down yesterday. It wasn't like, this isn't a growth thing or a demand thing. It was purely a numbers interest rate freak out thing, right? So sort of the same with copper. And I've been telling you it hasn't been copper's time, but oh shit, I had it pulled up and then it went away. I think it's a 408 or something like that. Relatively weak after hitting $5 earlier this year, but definitely doesn't want to go below $4, right? And so, I'll put on my crystal ball, or I'll look at my crystal ball for a second. I think these softs is just a tease, right? They're showing you a little cattle leg, as it were. And then as we get into the new year, I think you see the hard commodities start to embrace that inflation that we already know is reinflating, right? And you'll see silver go back up and copper go back up, because it's going to have to if the narrative is true, right? If Trump's going to, cut the red tape and open up the economy, you're going to need some oil and you're going to need some copper, man. So, and they're soft right now, which is why I think there's some opportunity in some of those spaces. So, again, it's a bit complex out there, right? So that's a bit of a nuanced answer, but gold held, silver relatively weak, even oil and copper weak, but not bearish, and sort of just teetering around their levels, right? And again, I think with closure in the new year, those commodities start to go back up.
Especially, and I can't overemphasize this enough, right? I know I probably have, but I'm going to continue to, especially within the context of 108.4 US dollar index. The fact that we have $2,600 gold still, $29 silver, $4 copper, nearly $70 oil, record highs in coffee, record highs in cattle, record highs in all the other stuff, says a lot about the inflation to come. And again, I'll overemphasize this some more because I don't think I can enough. And it's something that's just a big, thing with me. The people that are going to get hit the hardest, man, is the lower income and the middle class, man. The lower class and then the middle class as it relates to income levels. And that's not going to be fun. So, look, what we do here is we try to find opportunities every week for people. We try to look at trends. We try to get early on trends. We try to position ourselves and our readers and our friends and our family to be able to profit from those things. And we try to do so in a way, that isn't day in or day out. I have subscribers or friends that'll see a 10% drop in a stock, or even a 50% pullback in a year, or 60%, like we saw with companies before. And I look and I go, well, that's okay for now. Like, the plan was a 2-year plan, or the plan was a 3-year plan. Who cares what it's doing right now? As long as the companies that we've allocated capital to are executing, the value is being added, and the market will re-rate it when the market re-rates it, right? So I say that to say I do want to get into some of the absolute bargains that are happening because of tax law selling season. And for those not familiar, and, I've been doing it for the past month and a half, both in my own portfolio, and for friends and family that I help, right? I've been positioning and offsetting some of the gains that they've had in 2024, and trying to sell some of the losers, to offset those gains. So when they get their tax bill next year, the tax bill is less burdensome than it otherwise will be, right? And so we could like the company, we could like the position, but we may exit out of a portion of the position if we can capture a tax loss that will offset gains from other parts of the portfolio. And that doesn't mean that after, the month or whatever, we don't go back in there and reinitiate that position or get that position back at whatever price if we're playing the long game. But in the meantime, there's a lot of stuff getting thrown out with the bathwater. So what sticks out to you out there, Nick? And you can pick your commodity. You can pick your sector. It doesn't have to be resource specific. Mine, of course, always are. But what are you liking out there that you think, man, end of year, everybody's gone home, packed it up. They're in Christmas mode, holiday mode, New Year's mode. And of course, you and I are still working. But what looks good? I see a lot.
There's a lot out there, and I've been doing the same. Like, I've been buying some things, so I'm not going to tell you the names of all those things, but I'll give you some framework so you can do some more diligence, or subscribe, heaven forbid, to get the names of the picks instead. So, cannabis has been decimated, man, left for absolute dead. those stocks are down some 80 to 90%, basically since Canada went legal back in 2017. And Chuck Schumer's just been stringing us along here in the U.S.,
Yep.
telling us he was actually going to do something with the federal cannabis legislation, and hasn't done anything despite 4 years of a Democrat administration. I was actually doing some research today, and I found an article from October 2020, and weed stocks were up because Kamala was going to help legalize it. Like, fuck you. Anyway.
Yep.
The cannabis stocks have been left for dead. Trump is more sympathetic to the cause than people realize, but you don't need a federal blessing to make money in the space. What's happening is the separation of the companies that can actually operate versus those who have been sort of stringing it along and issuing shares and doing placements in this 2 or 3 year period that's been frustrating for the cannabis space. So, there's I just thought of a joke. You can separate the weed from the chaff. Anyway, that's what I've been doing, and there's a couple of good operators, so that's a really fertile ground to go hunting for some tax loss candidates, is the cannabis space. What else have I been buying? I know you want to talk about lithium, but that's an easy one. I mean, lithium came all the way around, so I won't steal your thunder. PGMs have been soft, like I think it was platinum got punched in the mouth the other day. It was like $1,100 and traded down to like 800 and some or
Yeah.
low 900s in a day or two. So like you said, when people start to email you and ask, you sort of makes your contrarian the senses go off. And I've had a buddy text me about one PGM play, and I've had a subscriber email me about another one. And this is one with a robust resource on the ground that's not going anywhere. CEO's been buying shares, et cetera, et cetera. So PGM is another fertile ground, and there's not just one company, there's more, and even copper. And then I'll shut up and let you talk. But
No.
some of these copper producers have come down a lot across the board, right? I was queuing up. I was looking at Rio Tinto yesterday and Freeport. Those stocks are down, but even some of like the mid-tier producers like Aero Copper, and I'm just giving you freebies that aren't in the premium portfolios. As copper has softened here in the past couple of months, have come down, and I think are worthy of a tax loss bump here in the next couple of weeks.
I love it. And you touched on lithium, and I can't not get into it because again, Patriot Battery Metals, right? 16 cents to $17, back to 250. And again, I've always said, yeah, sure, I would rather see the share price higher than lower. I think everybody would, right? But the end game is the end game, folks. And so you trim away what you need to trim away to take care of your taxes and your mortgage and whatever you need. And you keep the rest of the position. You do what I've said the whole time. You wait until either we get into production or we're bought out. And each of those things is going to happen at many, 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 many multiples of the current price today. Well, it's one thing for me to say it, right? Me in my little corner office here, just outside of Austin, Texas, and me with my group holding, roughly 75, 80% of our original position. It's another thing for Volkswagen to come in, Europe's largest car manufacturer, and say, look, we want to take a $69 million stake, Canadian, in Patriot for 9.9% of the company. Now, be absolutely clear. Do I wish this would have happened when the company was $10? Of course, we all do. But it wasn't time yet. Patriot wasn't as far along. What I want to recognize, and I want to give a congratulations to Ken, Blair, and the whole team over there at Patriot, is what I've been saying, that as long as the companies are adding value, I don't worry as much about the share price if it's a long-term core holding for me. What I worry about is about the execution. They have executed from top to bottom absolutely brilliantly. The only thing they haven't done well is manage the lithium price because it's out of their hands. That's a China problem. That problem would sort itself out soon enough. But the details of the deal are impressive. And look, the $69 million will get them through feasibility and the submission of the EIS. All of that is great. It doesn't come with any warrants. It doesn't come with any broker fees. But the partnership, right? The partnership to make Patriot a future, this is right from the release, a key future supplier of lithium raw materials for the North American and European battery supply chains. That part is very important. They aren't looking to sell to China. They're not looking to ship to China. They are wanting to establish a domestic North American lithium-related supply chain, a critical metal supply chain. So not only did they come in and take a 9.9% stake, but they had a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to establish an ongoing strategic relationship between Volkswagen and Patriot to jointly explore and collaborate on shared strategic objectives. And what they want to do is they want to establish a cost-competitive, sustainable, and ESG-compliant battery supply chain, and this is the part that's important, that will attract government support and incentives and the potential development of a chemical conversion facility. That is as much of a green light and a clear path towards either production and or a buyout and or both, right? And so, look, Volkswagen, first one at the table. I know it's a dance partner that a lot of people have been courting. It is a pivot for Volkswagen. It speaks to the quality of the asset. It speaks to the exploration upside, speaks to the world-class team that Patriot has. The shares, pop some 40% on the news. If you want a contrarian lithium speculation, there's research houses out there with price targets and still in the $16, $17 area for anybody thinking that Gerardo's, just talking his own book and it's never going to reach $16, $17, $20 again. You're never going to see those price points. This was a big deal for the company. It's a big deal for James Bay. It's a big deal for Canada. And a shot across, the critical metals chain bow here with Volkswagen saying, we want a seat at the table. We want to start securing supply for 2030 and beyond. And I absolutely believe this won't be the last time that those two consummate a deal. And look, Patriot was keen to say, yeah, you can come in and take 12.5% to 25% between stage 1 and stage 2. But we want to reserve the right to be able to talk to other partners and bring other people to the table to give ourselves flexibility when it comes time to build that plant. And so, no, I love everything about this deal. I couldn't be happier as a shareholder. Congrats to the team. Really excited to see what this does. And again, it won't be just Volkswagen, folks. We have GM already taking a stake in Lithium Americas. They went about it in a different way, but they've committed $1 billion to a clay project in Nevada. I think a lot of money is coming in the sector in 2025. I'm excited for the lithium space once again.
All these government incentives, and we got to cut the budget. I don't know how it's going to happen. I have some thoughts on there if you'll indulge me for 90 seconds or so. So you said a couple of things there that are interesting. You said Patriot didn't want to sell the stuff to China. They want to, make a local supply chain, right? That's interesting because I don't think Canada would let them sell to China even if they wanted to, right? So we've got this isolationist and protectionism stuff going on in the resource space, and it's been brewing for a long time, and it's really coming home to roost in earnest now because what jogged my memory on this was you had put on the sheet the fission uranium and Paladin merger has just been approved, right? And that merger had to be approved by, I love the French Canadian, Francois Philippe Champagne. Because he said that fission could merge with Paladin, but they couldn't sell any uranium to China except the uranium they're already contracted to sell to China through the CGN relationship anyway. So fucking government. But anyway,
you said it before I could, but yep. I'm like, what?
So I'm wondering, Patriot wouldn't have been able to sell to China if they wanted. But here's the point I wanted to make is that this is where it was always going, right? It was just last week that China cut off exports of germanium and gallium and antimony. And the antimony stock spiked up. We talked about that. Price of antimony shot up. These governments and companies and industries are finally realizing that they do have to have these secure domestic supply chains wherever they hope to sell these vehicles, right? So Volkswagen, if you want to build and manufacture electric vehicles in North America, because, oh, by the way, you have to, if you want the North American tax credits as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, then you have to secure and mine and refine and process and purify those spodumene crystals into your battery grade material here in the United States. And you certainly don't want to be dependent on even foreign technology for that, right? So you're seeing that pop off here. You're seeing the steps that are made. A couple of other things to add on there. Volkswagen's interesting. They're ahead of the curve, right? I've been talking about these battery passports that are going to be issued starting in, I don't know if it's next year or 2027, I think it's 2027 in the EU, and how Volkswagen already has the battery passport, right? So these companies are already doing the things that are necessary to meet the mandates to get these incentives to sell their electric cars. And that means they got to buy and invest in high quality critical metals and minerals deposits and processes that are outside of the typical, places, i.e. China. And so I don't hate to say it, I love to say it, we staked a lot of our future on this very premise, right? That these critical metals were no longer going to be just given to you by the Chinese, who controlled in some cases 60, 70, 80, 90% of not just the mining, but for the processing, right? And so where else did I want to go with that? I was going to go to Apple, right? Because
Yeah.
that was on the list too. So Apple is being sued by the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That Apple, the one that makes all the phones that we all have in our pockets. Absolutely.
You think little hands were necessary for the cameras to get the lenses in their little hands?
You have a little hand. That's amazing. They're getting sued by the DRC because the DRC is saying you guys are basically presiding over the extraction of blood diamonds, except they're not diamonds. It's tin, tungsten, and tantalum that's produced here in the DRC. And yeah, you guys, feign interest in wanting to secure your supply chain because you use this organization. I forget the acronym, ITSCI, I think it is. But everybody in the world knows that ITCSI is just the International Tin Association, and they have no interest in really cleaning up the supply chain. They only have an interest in selling tin to you, Apple. So, yeah, you feign interest, but that's not good enough anymore. We're suing you, and we're going through the French and Belgian courts to do so, basically to try to hold your feet into the fire and, at the end of the day, stop the child mining of these minerals and the conflict mining of these armed groups who control the mines and literally rape and pillage their way to profit so you can have a $900 piece of advanced technology in your pocket, right? So, Apple is saying all the right things, but at the end of the day, there's investments that are happening right now that are aimed to solve this thing. I'm not going to tell you the names because I've done so enough for free, and I presented on them a lot. But there's companies out there who are using the blockchain to do this very thing: 100% traceability of the mineral from mine to ingot or mine to phone or wherever it's going. So. And that platform is expanding. This is being adopted by big mining companies I've told you about, Rio Tintos of the world, Sumitomo's on down the line. And now look, the end users are getting brought into the thing as well. And you can bet that if Apple starts selling fewer phones because there's some protest signs out there about child labor or whatever the fuck it is, right? Then they'll do something about it. And that's a $1 trillion company, right? We talk a lot about these small mining sectors, and they just need a little bit of influence and capital. And someone to adopt this, traceability protocol, and it's going to happen, then these investments are going to pay off very smartly. And I think we're at a watershed moment for that. Pretty soon you're going to have, this is going to be embedded into the contracts for the commodities themselves. There's going to be clean copper contracts and clean tin contracts. And the exchanges are going to say, you know what, back to that ITSCI or whatever I was just talking about, like, you're not even going to be able to sell your tin on our exchange unless you meet these protocols of traceability. So that's where we're going with that. There was a sidewinding route to get there from a Volkswagen investment in Patriot Battery. But that's why, one of the reasons, at least, Volkswagen is investing in Patriot and wanting to set up that local supply chain, right? Yeah.
No, and look, one more point that's important, and this was something that first came to my attention back in 2009, 2010. I was fortunate enough, to have a curtain open for me by an advisor, friend, and mentor of ours, Nick, that put me onto rare earths really early. And the premise was very simple. The premise was, China's producing and refining 95% of these critical metals that are critical for everything. And yes, while they played the game brilliantly for 20 years to take that monopoly position, the danger wasn't so much in just the fact that they control the metals. It's the things that the metals were going into that now forced the US, Europe, and the rest of the world to not only source the metals from China, but they also wanted exclusives on the manufacturing of said products. So when you are a defense department or you are a tech company and you have secrets that you're trying to keep yours, you are at a significant disadvantage having to not only source the metal from someone that may be not so friendly to you, but we're also sending, at that point, some of the missiles, some of the helicopters, some of the, the stuff that is in hospitals that help, detect breast cancer and saves lives. We're sending that technology over there. They were reverse engineering it, and it's no coincidence that everything was available for 1/10 of the price coming out of China. How the fuck do you think they got the blueprints for it? We gave it to them because we had no choice. If we wanted the metal to make the product, to have the thing here at home, then we had to send them the blueprints and allow them to produce it. Then they would reverse engineer it, take off the logo, and flood the market with it, right? And we're seeing that in the lithium space right now. And I applaud companies like Volkswagen that are waking up to that and going, nah. No, we're going to position ourselves with this world-class tier 1 deposit in North America where we could have multiple stages of production, a mine that will be in production for many, many decades profitably. We're going to take control of our own future, because if we're going to have an electrified future, however much of a role that plays in the company's future prospects, we need to control the technology that goes into it, not just where the metal comes from. And it's why I've tried to explain over and over, there's always going to be a premium in these new trade wars on deposits that are independent of, non-friendly countries or domiciles, right? And look, with the trade wars that are going on, the silent Cold War that isn't so silent with China right now, the last thing a company like a Volkswagen, largest European car manufacturer, the last thing they want is to give away their next 20 years of blueprints to China so that they could be reverse engineered. There's a reason why China already has the most affordable electric vehicles in the world. There's a reason why China was positioning for this 30, 40 years ago, buying, a mine here in the U.S. that was the last producing mine of rare earths until recently. They played the game beautifully, right? You hate the player, they hate the game, and hate whatever you want. They played it beautifully. That was the game, and they did it right. I love seeing companies like Volkswagen saying the next 30, 50, 100 years are going to look different as it relates not just where we get our metals from, but how we develop and implement our technology. So, any thoughts on that there, Nick?
I mean, it's all 100%. It's all 100% correct. The Chinese have a long history of not abiding by intellectual property laws. I heard a story once of a Jeep manufacturing plant that was built there, and then an executive went to visit, and the entire town was driving Jeeps around the streets. They just didn't have Jeep logos on them. They had built an entire factory next to the Jeep factory, and we're just cranking out Jeeps without the logo on them. I mean, it's amazing, man. What they do over there. And so, no, long time coming for this sort of stuff. And I think you're going to see more of it. Yeah. And I should just add on, kudos to you, and you should pat yourself on the back, and we should be shouting from the top of our lungs. I was joking a couple of months ago about how, in the eyes of the tax law, we're Wall Street tycoons and ultra wealthy investors. But, I've been telling you guys, start telling people that all the lithium for their Jettas and Passats and Tiguans are going to be coming from the company that you finance at 16 cents.
Well, thank you. And again, it popped 40%. It's up to 350. Woohoo. Yes, we're still up 20-fold. I don't lose sight of that. I'm thankful for that. It was life-changing for me, for friends, for family, for subscribers. But again, I want to reiterate, folks, the original premise. I said this is the very beginning when we first saw where the project was going, that it had the potential to become world-class. Nobody questions that anymore, including Volkswagen. But I always said, I'll repeat it again, the end game, this is a legacy stock that, eventually either becomes a producer and has, it becomes a Pilbara. What Ken Brinsden did before, Patriot CEO and chairman, right? It becomes a 9, 10, 11, $12 billion company from the $300 million market cap base that it has right now. That upside is upside of 10, 20, 30-fold from today's prices. And that potential hasn't gone away. The only thing that happened is we had a rough year plus in the lithium space where China played the game well. They gutted the supply and then they drove the prices down. You're going to get a pretty nasty recovery in the next couple of years. And then there's going to be deficits right around the time that Patriot's building its facility and right around the time that production is slated to go ahead and start coming out. All of that will be secured. It will all be forward sold. And that is going to be one profitable operation. Again, I understand. I've done it, right? If you have to clip to pay taxes, tuitions, mortgages, family emergencies, all that, you do that. But we're in the fourth inning with Patriot. Like, we're with baseball parlance, right? We're in the fourth inning with Patriot. We're not in the bottom of the sevens. We're not bringing a reliever in the ninth, hoping it gets to $5 or $10 again. That's in the cards. I'm still playing for $25, $30, $35 share price with a dividend spit out, in the next 3 to 4 years. That's what I'm playing for. Either that, or it goes to 10 and then they announce another deal with Volkswagen or another company and it goes back to 15. Then lithium recovers and it goes back to 20. And then the company says, no, this is too good. We're going to buy you guys out. Or a group comes together and says, we'll buy you out. We'll offer you 35. And the company says, okay, that was fun. Take it. right? But it's going to be one of those two things. It either takes a little longer and it goes into production in the next 4 or 5 years, or it gets bought out, and it won't be cheap, folks, and it won't be anywhere near these prices. So if you want a contrarian, speculative, world-class asset that has legs for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you'd be hard-pressed to not bet on Patriot Battery Metals, especially with that world-class team. You cannot, again, I keep saying it, but I can't overemphasize enough the difference that it Ken Brinson. He had a presentation, and it was absolutely brilliant work explaining the top to bottom nuts and bolts of where the company is and where the company's headed and the timeline for that stuff. So, yeah, that's going to be your contrarian pick for the week, folks. Supposed to remind you every week to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe for all of my thoughts, opinions, Mr. Hodge, and our talented group of editors' thoughts and opinions. Everything from, and we didn't touch on this, I'll touch on it briefly. I'll ask you crypto, but, Chris Curl's got his stuff there. John Carl's got his stuff there. Ryan Stansel, Mike Fagan, talented core group of people out there that write a lot of good stuff about a lot of different things. I encourage you to go over there, sign up to get that stuff delivered straight to your inbox. I want to remind everybody before I ask you about Bitcoin, Nick, that we only have like 1 more or 2 more of these before it goes behind a paywall. And I really, really hope everybody joins us for making it as affordable, like literally as we possibly can. Because we thoroughly enjoy doing this. We have discussions, business meetings all the time. Nick and I, we shoot ideas and bounce ideas off each other. We talk about why we do this. And, at the end of the day, our bread and butter is our investments, right? We eat our own cooking and we write checks. And if we do well, we do really, really well. And yes, the publishing and the Resource Stock Digest media company, they do well for us as well. But the bulk of our revenue comes from the ideas that we share with y'all and how we implement those ideas for ourselves, our friends, our family. And so I really hope that y'all continue to follow us on that journey. It'll be funner, and it can be more informative too, because now it'll be behind the paywall. So you'll still get portions of this for free, but the stock picks and the real deep insight that, the actionable insight, it's not fair to our paying subscribers over on the publishing company side to keep delivering the picks and the rationale and the whispers and the stuff, that we're privy to. It's not fair to give it away for free, and they're over here paying us for advice and get it on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. So we hope you all feel it's fair. We hope you feel that it's worth following along, and we thank you. I mean, God, Again, this started over a beer in Washington State at Mr. Hodge's house. And a joke. I asked him if he wanted to start a podcast. He said, sure. We opened a beer. He said, what do you want to call it? It took us like 5-10 minutes. And we're like, it's a crazy world. We should call it Bizarro World. And we were up and doing it the next week or two. We had never done a podcast. I had never done a podcast. And here we are almost on 300 episodes, man. It's been a ride. It's been fun. Looking forward to 300 more.
It's a bizarro world, Gerardo. It's so bizarre. You can get a hawkish Federal Reserve cut. That's how bizarre the world is. And they can stand up there and feed you that bullshit with a straight face. Bitcoin's okay. Bitcoin went back below 100,000. It's still bullish. You mentioned the middle class and lower classes being hit hardest by this mismanagement of the monetary economy. That's one reason people have gravitated toward Bitcoin so ferociously. I think they will continue to do so. I think they'll be talking about it around their Christmas holiday table. And for the same reason that the dollar's strong and that inflation is going to be with us, I think you see Bitcoin back over 100,000 in the new year. Chris Curl, I told you last week, has a new investment in a project that's partnering with Google to disrupt the credit card space. We have got a URL up for that as well, dailyprofitcycle.com/Google. I've been dabbling in the space as well, made a recommendation in Hodge Family Office this week on a trade for a Bitcoin-related play, and obviously invested in and interested in those blockchain-based traceability companies for the mining space. So I think that's that. I was going to leave you with one thing. I want you to check out a ticker on the NASDAQ, NUKK. Nucleus is the name of the company. I haven't seen it mentioned many places this week, but I was just doing my screens this week and I saw that it was up several thousand% in a day. And so I had a NASDAQ listed stock. So I had to see what was going on. Ooh. This stock went from under $4 to over 70 this week, Gerardo, by making an investment in the company that controls Israel's Iron Dome. So just this small company, NUKK, and Of course, they took the opportunity to raise 10 million bucks on that surge, but from below $4 to over $70 in 1 week is good work if you can get it. And it also speaks to the froth, the liquidity, and the bubblish nature that is still in there in the system as the Fed continues to cut rates and tell you they're hawkish.
Fuckers. I had one more thing I wanted to say. I'll leave it there. It's been such a bizarro week, as was the one before, as was the one before that, as they've all been since at least 2016. But it's been such a crazy week. We didn't even talk about all the UFO drone sightings all around the country that the government has acknowledged but won't speak on and won't identify and also won't shoot down. That's how crazy a time we're living in right now, folks. Listen, I hope everybody has the safest, funnest, merriest of Christmases, holidays, whatever you celebrate. We'll see you before the new year for at least one more of these. And I wish all of you the best. Make it fun, make it count, stay safe out there. Work hard, play hard. It should be in that order, but give yourself a little break over the holiday season here and take some time to be thankful, grateful, and enjoy all of the good things. Because no matter how tough it is, as my dad always used to tell me, it could always be worse, right? Send us away, Nick.
That's it. Have a Merry Christmas, Hansa Quantica, y'all, and we'll see you back here. If not the last week of the year, then definitely in the new year with part of this Behind the Paywall.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.